So welcome back guys to We Talk Boxing, and today I'm going to be talking about the fight which is taking place next weekend between Demsey McKean versus Moses Itauma. Now this fight is set to take place on the undercard of the biggest fight of the year between Alexander Usyk versus Tyson Fury, the rematch. So the fight between McKean and Itauma is going to be taking place in Saudi on that undercard, and it sees the pair meet in a professional ring for the first time. Now, in terms of this fight, it's a bit of a crossroads fight in my eyes, where you've got someone in terms of a Demsey McKean who's got vastly a lot more experience compared to his opponent Moses Itauma, where McKean's fought 24 professional bouts today, winning 22 with 14 KOs to his name and only suffering that one loss on his record as well. Yes, you're probably going to do the math and say that's only 23, but according to BoxRec, obviously they class the fight which is coming up as the 24th. But Anyhow, still McKean himself has been a very, very inactive fighter. Now his last fight was in 2023, August to be precise, and that was against a Filip Hrgovic, and that was in London, and it was a good performance for Demsey McKean. He lost by a TKO in the 12th round with a minute and 1 second left to go, and it was a very late stoppage for Filip Hrgovic, and up until that point, I had McKean winning the fight because the fight was that close, and I just felt as if McKean was doing a little bit more for me. And if the fight would have potentially got to the scorecards, who knows what the judges would have scored. Obviously, I felt as if McKean was winning, but the judges might have seen it different. Now, when you look at someone like a Demsey McKean, he's very big for a heavyweight. He's 6'6", Australian boxer, known as the Tower, 63.64% KO rate. He started his career back in 2014, and as I mentioned a second ago, he is a very inactive fighter. Now, when you're looking at the opposition, now taking away Filip Hrgovic from the rest of his opponents, I don't know any of these guys. Pretty much unknowns to me. You guys could probably go on Demsey McKean's BoxRec and probably have a look at some of the names. I'll probably say, oh yeah, I know this guy, I know that guy, he's decent, etc. But to me, I don't know a lot of these guys. A lot of McKean's fights, pretty much all of them, apart from his last three of his four last fights have all been in his home country, New Zealand, Australia, wherever that is. So yeah, he's only fought outside the country 3 times. This will be his 4th in Saudi Arabia. And as I said, Filip Hrgovic is the main man on his resume. Now, in terms of Moses Itauma, still a young pup in the game, 19 years of age. This will be his 11th contest to date. Currently a record of 10-0 with 8 KOs to his name. A very active heavyweight because obviously he's been pumped through by Frank Warren in terms of getting him out, getting him active and putting him in fights, winning fights I should say, quite early. His KO percentage to date, because he's been fighting against pretty much nobodies, is 80%. Currently ranked the 13th best British heavyweight currently, and 62 in the world. He's a southpaw boxer, 6'2.5", so he's a lot, well not a lot, but he's shorter than Demsey McKean, because McKean is 6'6", and he fights out of Kent in the UK, and he only turned professional in 2023. In terms of Itauma, his amateur record, he had 20 amateur bouts, with 10 of those being KOs as well, so he hasn't had a lot of experience in terms of boxing, so didn't really have a massive amateur career, has only had 10 professional fights to date. In terms of the people that he's actually been in the ring with, hasn't really been in there with any significant killers at this stage of his career, and I understand why, because Frank Warren's trying to build him up into the next best British heavyweight, the next AJ basically, or the next Daniel Dubois, depending on how you want to kind of look at it now. But Mariusz Wach is the best name on his record, and he demolished him in 2 rounds. Could have demolished him in one, but he took him out in two. And that is a very good accomplishment, because Mariusz Wach is no slouch. He's had a crazy amount, 49 to be precise, 49 bouts, and he hasn't been stopped. I'm just having a look at his box rec. Yeah, well, he's been stopped a few times, but he hasn't been stopped as quick as what Moses Itauma done it. And yes, you could probably say, well, he's old, blah blah blah. How old is he? He's 44 years of age. You can say that, but the size difference in the fight was crazy. And Moses Itauma made him look like a baby. Absolutely destroyed him. But I'm not taking into consideration now that in terms of McKean is a different level of opposition for Moses Itauma. This is by far the biggest name that he's taken on to date, even though McKean hasn't really fought anyone significant himself apart from Hrgovic. This is the biggest name for Moses Itauma. Now, this fight would tell me a lot more in terms of where Itauma is at this stage of his career. And what I mean by that, it would tell me, yes, is he, like, can you pretty much chuck him in there with a vacant heavyweight title fight belt sort of thing, or should he stay at British scene, try and capture a British title, European, Commonwealth, and all that sort of thing before contesting at the best of, like, the best in heavyweights, really, in terms of the world scene. So this fight would tell me a lot more in terms of Moses Itauma. But there's massive fights out there for him. He hasn't fought really any... Well, I'm looking at his record now. He's fought a few British opponents, but he hasn't really fought any of the bigger British names. So let's say he loses, for example. You could take this fight as a learning curve, and then potentially look to try and fight other British fighters are roughly around the same level of him. Solomon Dakers, we've recently seen him lose against David Alloway. Dakers has only had 10 professional fights. That could be a fight. Or could you chuck him in there with someone like a Nick Webb or a David Allen, depending on how he does against Johnny Fisher, a Fraser Clark. These guys are all around the same level, or have had the same amount of fights as Moses Itauma. But the only difference at this stage is because Moses Itauma is looking so dangerous, no one really wants to get in there with him. They're chucking him in there with some killers, and I'm not saying that McKean is a killer, but compared to what Moses Itauma has been fighting, he is a killer. But anyway, you guys can let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Who do you consider the favourite in this fight between Itauma versus McKean? How do you feel as if it's going to play out? Do you think it's going to be a referee stoppage? Do you think it's going to be a KO? Do you reckon it's going to go to points? My prediction for this fight is that Itauma's going to stop him. And I'm probably saying this because I think Itauma's going to go the full way. I think he is the real deal. And I like what I see today, so I'm going with my heart rather than my head on this one. But I think he's going to stop him. I don't think it's going to be as easy as what he has fought recently in terms of his other opponents, Itauma. But I reckon he'll probably stop him within the first 5 rounds. I reckon he's going to cause him that much damage, that much trouble, that he's going to stop him. But McKean is durable. He is tough. So I wouldn't be surprised if this goes the full distance. Now, there's no rounds which have been suggested on this. So it could be a 10-rounder. It could be an 8-rounder. I don't really know. But it hasn't said that on BoxRec. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. And as always, please subscribe and comment. Bless.